Three of the best players to ever lace them up for the Canucks were massively disrespected by a recent ESPN list, and JT Miller seemingly breaking the age curve has us analyzing just where he could finish amongst the all-time Canucks players when his time in Vancouver is all said and done. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Canucks this offseason. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Canucks GOATs disrespected. In a recent list by ESPN, they put the top 25 players of the 21st century together. On their website, there is a much more in-depth version of the list. I just created a condensed version here for you guys, so if you want to pause it and take a look at the full list right here, it is available for you. There is some asterisks that I did place, and we're going to get to those in a second, but when you look at those lists, there are some players who are very much deserving to be on that list. Obviously, Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin being in the top two. Nick Lidstrom as well, a Hall of Famer, being on there. Marty Brodeur and King Hendrick as well, two great goalies, two of the greatest as well. And you have Marc-Andre Fleury as well on that list. You have other players like Pavel Datsyuk, Duncan Keith, Jarome Iginla, all great players, but there was an omission of three players in particular that has Canucks fans very, very angry, and rightfully so, and that would be the omission of Daniel Sedin, Henrik Sedin, and Roberto Luongo. Three players that absolutely should have been on that list, especially considering the main point of all three of these guys are Hall of Famers. And when you look at Roberto Luongo, he did have a long tenure with the Florida Panthers as well as the Vancouver Canucks, where he is the all-time leading goalie in all categories for the Vancouver Canucks, as well as 2 Olympic gold medals on top of that. So what more could he have done to be on the list with some of his best contemporaries like Marty Brodeur and King Hendrick and Jonathan Quick as well, who was also very deserving to be on that list. Then you look at Henrik Sedin as well and Daniel Sedin, the two of the highest point scorers in the history of the Vancouver Canucks. It's a shame why they weren't on this list. They are very much deserving to be on that list. When you're the franchise leading scorers for your team, you are a Hall of Famer. You have done basically all that you can to win. You've won all the trophies. You've won the Art Ross, the Ted Lindsay, the King Clancy Memorial Trophy, and you've done it twice as well. You've both done it together. What more could you do to get onto that list? And when you look at that list, yes, I did put an asterisk, and to me, these are three players that easily could have been taken out in exchange for either three of these Vancouver Canucks GOATs and would have changed the rankings a little bit more. I think some of the rankings, like, yes, Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, they are deserving to be on that list, but to put them so high, especially with Matthews at 15, you put him in the top 20 to 25 at best, but you take out a guy like Victor Hedman and Nikita Kucherov. It seems like this list was leaning a lot towards the Lightning with the recency bias, but you take out those guys and put 3 Hall of Famers in there, as well as take out Leon Draisaitl as well. I think that changes the list a lot more and puts them in a lot better company, where there are guys that are either going to be future Hall of Famers or are already Hall of Famers on there, like Nick Lidstrom and other great goalies like Marty Brodeur and Marc-Andre Fleury. There's so many great goalies. Vasilevsky, yes, he's fantastic, but again, when you put him up against Roberto Luongo, I don't think it matches up. Yes, he has the cups and he was fantastic in the postseason during those times. But again, Roberto Luongo, he's 2-time Olympic gold medalist as well. I know that doesn't translate to the NHL as much in their eyes, but again, he is a Hall of Famer. How can you take a guy who, yes, he's won 2 cups, but you got a guy who is already a Hall of Famer on a list where Hall of Famers should represent the best of the 21st century so far. So it is understandable that Canucks fans are very much rattled with this. I am one of those Canucks fans as well. I think there are 3 guys that absolutely should have been on that list, and that would have been even if you're not a Canucks fan. I think if you would ask any hockey fan, they would say, yeah, absolutely, those 3 guys definitely deserve to be on that list. It's very much a shame that they're not on those lists with some of their best contemporaries who were some of their best competitors and players that they played with on the international level. So yes, it would have been nice to see those guys make that list. However, ESPN did maybe have a case of recency bias, but that's all for another day. It's not now. The list is out. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But Vancouver fans just continue to be counted out with their players and their history, current and former, where they're the team that is forgotten about or just disregarded as that one Canadian team. And I think this is the year where Vancouver Canucks players are going to take that to heart. They're going to play with that chip on their shoulder, and they're going to make sure that people remember the Vancouver Canucks for the great team that they are. And I think that's going to be a great thing going forward, and a new version of this Vancouver Canucks with a version that we have haven't seen since the time of the Sedins and Luongo. So I think Vancouver is a more complete team now than they have been since that time. So it is very interesting. And one person who is a piece of that puzzle is going to be our second topic of the day, and that is JT Miller as a future Canucks GOAT, potentially, especially when you look at an article that Canucks Army put out where they talk about age curves. Age markers are models of statistic, like likelihood. They are different models and modes of presentation, but they all they really do is track to when NHL players put up their best seasons of production, and then use that data to attempt to predict the NHL average of when they hit their prime and peak years. They go a bit further as well into saying the results vary a little bit depending on the player as well, but most come out stating that the most NHL forwards at least hit their prime in their mid-20s between the ages of about 23 and 27. By the time they age 27, most NHL forwards have already put up their best statistical season. And one person who definitely proved that wrong was JT Miller, who did break the age curve. And there was a lot of people who were expecting him to do it. A lot of people who are very big fans of JT Miller thought that he was going to exceed a lot of expectations. He definitely exceeded those and proved a lot of the naysayers wrong. And he did it by just keeping his head down and just getting the work done and being the ultimate competitor, the ultimate leader, and the embodiment of what this team is. And especially when in considering that Vancouver has a history of players breaking the age curve, especially when you look at Daniel Sedin, Henrik Sedin, and Marcus Naslund as well. All these guys hit their best career seasons when they were in their 30s or at least over the age of 27, breaking that age curve. So it is interesting to see that JT Miller is joined in that company, especially when you look at the all-time scoring on this Vancouver Canucks history, where Daniel, Henrik, and Marcus Naslund all in the top three. Again, they're all certified Hall of Famers and GOATs for this team. And you have a guy like Ryan Kessler, who a lot of people compare JT Miller to. He's already passed him in total points. He's 14 on the all-time scoring. Then you have Elias Pettersson then in there as well. And it shows that JT Miller just has so much room to grow and score with this team, where he has put himself in a position where he could potentially be one of those all-time greats for the Canucks, not just in scoring, but leadership. We've already seen the impact that he has on this team with the leadership role he's taken on, and of what the Canucks embody, which is fierce competition and never giving up, even when even when it seems like they're out of the fight. And JT Miller continues to do that. He plays his butt off game in and game out. He doesn't mail it in. He doesn't get cardio. He puts himself out there and he plays like it's his last game of his career. That's a guy that you want on the ice whenever you can for 60 minutes if you could, but you can't do that necessarily. His time on ice is still fairly significant for the Vancouver Canucks, one of the top time on ice. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of JT Miller, especially with these new offensive lines where they are very top heavy at the forward position. And I think we're going to see another career year out of JT Miller and so many of these Vancouver Canucks. Let us know what you guys think on the potential of JT Miller as with his future with the Vancouver Canucks, of where he could rank when it's all said and done. Let us know also what you think about the Sedins and Luongo being left off of that top 25 list. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. But speaking of you guys, let's get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And we see here in a comment from Cash McGregor that talented Canadians get drafted early and are hard to come by. This is in reference to our last video where we talked about the draft prospects of Sawyer Mineo and Anthony Romani, two Canadians who were selected to the Team Canada camp. And Anthony Romani was that late round gem, where it did prove that comment to be contrary, but Sawyer Mineo was someone we took as well as we could. And Anthony Romani was one of those late round draft picks that is seeming like it's going to prove well sooner rather than later. So that's going to be interesting to see. Can't wait to see what all these draft prospects do and what the Canucks do going forward. Make sure to let us know what you guys think down below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Let us know what you guys think. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffen. Take care.